Hey, what's up? Here, recording it's a little update. Things I want to do, things I want to accomplish, I guess. Also, some updates. They put Roost back on Steam, the definitive edition, for like $30. I'm gonna go pick that up in a couple weeks, right? Because I own the game right now. I bought a Steam key. Naughty, naughty, naughty. I bought a secondhand Steam key. And you're not supposed to do that, or whatever, right? Actually, I don't know. I don't know the ethics behind it. I don't know if you're not supposed to. I know there's a lot of shit that can happen if your Steam key turns out to be counterfeit, but I literally only do shit like that. I could have very easily pirated the game, but I didn't, right? But yeah, yeah, I'm gonna pick up the new definitive edition they have out, which cool, right? I'm really happy that exists now, and I can do that. I can finally get Cause yeah, I can finally get the Pack of the Rising Sun or the Empire of the Rising Sun pack. I don't really care for the Chimera pack, but whatever. Um, yeah, and I mean it's like the DLC packs were going for like hundreds of dollars on Steam keys on the website I got the Steam key from, and I don't know. I would prefer to not do that. I was never going to buy the DLC because they're just so expensive. But um, yeah, now that they're all for the reasonable price of $30, and I'm probably going to pick that up, or I'm definitely going to pick that up. But outside of that, I've been playing a lot of Skyrim again. I'm trying to do a 100% playthrough on my one other account. Um, I'm putting it down for a couple days. I want to if there's a stretch where I have like 3 days off, I might use one of those days to play Skyrim. But you know, I need to be productive too. Like I can't just play video games all the time. But when I got home from work last night, I played the new definitive edition of Age of History 2. And that was fun. That was a good time. I like a lot of the improvements. The world map is really fucking big in that game, but yeah, I don't know. Yeah, the world map is really fucking big, but also I don't know. The game is running a lot better. It's got a lot of new features I really like. I like a lot of the new political components. I haven't played Hearts of Iron 4 in a few weeks. Just haven't really had the time to start a new campaign. Hearts of Iron 4 campaigns take fucking forever, right? And so yeah, it's going through the motions of everyday life and trying to spice it up with video games, I guess. But I'm also trying to spice it up with learning more about music theory and getting better at guitar. Um, I've been watching a lot of music theory content, and yeah, I think it's really important to understand that I've known a good bit about music theory for a while, but definitely not like a lot. And I don't know, I want to get really good at playing guitar, and I want to learn to be really technically proficient when it comes to writing, I don't know, chord progressions, writing melodic lines, of course writing harmony too. I think it's really important though to understand theory in for my cases, right? A lot of people are just really good at playing and they don't really give a shit about the theory, and that's also another I think valid approach, because if you already if your ear is so good that you know it sounds good and you can play something that's aesthetic, or not aesthetically, but if you can play something that's auditorily sonically pleasing, a lot of people, you're going to get more out of that than I think you will out of just a rich theoretical understanding, because people want to listen to music. I don't think people want to, generally speaking, they don't want to be lectured on the mechanics of music. And, that's fine. Yeah, it kind of sucks for me because I really do like music theory. I'm really interested in it. Like, all the augmented sixth minor chords, right? And all the Greek modes, all the non-diatonic modes. Learning more about chord mechanics and predominant chords, stuff like that. That's really cool. And then, yeah, it's just stuff like that just generally fascinates me, because there's nothing that said there, like, music theory, I don't think insists that things sound good, but it definitely, like, explains how things are supposed to resolve, and you have to, like, make out of that puzzle what you want. And that to me is really special, because it I don't know, if you turn music into a puzzle that you're trying to solve, there's infinite solutions, yes, but there's also, like, I don't know, there's a very clear, like, answer a lot of the time. And of course those answers are going to be molded by what are you trying to achieve, right? And I feel the same way about serialism, like music serialism. Like, music serialism is very much a puzzle. You're turning music into a puzzle that you need to solve. And I don't know. Yeah, serialism's really interesting. I would love to write a piece using serialism someday. I don't really know how all that works quite yet. Like, writing a piece using serialism. And I don't know. I think music is very much like we have rules and shit we use for a lot of piece writing. Like, I don't know, I think those are good to stay by, but I would love to just write a piece, no time signature, no key signature, no, I don't know, I think I would separate it into bars for, like, because I don't want to just separate the piece by rehearsal numbers. Like, that just doesn't seem efficient or pragmatic. But yeah, so I'd probably separate it into bars, but I don't know. Very interesting. Maybe no even tempo marker, like make something that's, like, really ultra subjective, right? And, like, every time you play it, it would be different, because I don't know, I like that sort of stuff. I think it's important to have both pieces that tell your, like, that tell your the interpreter of the sheet music, the player, right, or the conductor, or the score master, whatever, right? I think it's important to have both pieces that tell those people exactly what they want, but also, like, pieces that have that liberty. But the thing is, if you write something that has that liberty, then you're really going to I think there's going to be things that you naturally have to omit, like articulation. Like, if you have an ultra subjective piece and you have, like, something like staccato or a fermata, right, then you're injecting your own, like, when you're writing, this is what you want it to sound like. And of course, if every time you write, like, someone writes, right, they have a sound in their head of what they want this to sound like, so that's always going to be in there. But I don't know, I think that could make it could make an interesting challenge to have, like, something like a fermata, because that challenges the interpreter to resolve it, whatever, right? I think, or accentuate, I guess it's also kind of like writing a book, where it's like the reader's always going to interpret, a paragraph using their own understanding of language, pronunciation, um, like knowing where to place stress in a sentence, speaking with their own meter, I guess. But also, um, the author is going to throw their own understanding in there, and so there's this natural like friction between interpreter and creator, which I think is generally really interesting, right? And yeah, so bearing all this in mind, I want to get pretty good with music theory. I want to become a better guitar player, and I want to record records that are mostly just playing now. I don't think I have anything interesting to say. I like the idea of writing songs with lyrics, but I don't want to write boring songs. I've been writing boring songs for a really long time. And I don't know, I just don't want to do that anymore. I don't think anyone is going to fault me, right? But yeah, what I mean is I like to I want to record proper like music with good guitar solos, and I want them to be like out of the box, man. Because a lot of the solos or improvisation that exists in my music, what vestigial forms they take now, they exist in a really safe format. Like, if I'm in B minor, then I'm going to stay in B minor for the whole solo, and I don't know, I don't think that's really healthy. Like, no accidentals, nothing. Like, I don't know, I don't think, minus some, like, not legato. Oh, yeah. But no, minus some vibrato and things like that. That's fine, right? Like every beginner guitar player has a sort of similar problem, I would say. But for me personally, like I don't want to do that. I want to use interesting like melodic and harmonic functions. So yeah, I want to write more interesting guitar parts, but I'm at this point where like maybe if I do have a song idea, I'm going to, you know, write an old style Cascade song, whatever. And I want to still make electronic music. When I make electronic music from now on, I want it to be more interesting too. Like I want to use like Tonitz function, um, another music theory term, but yeah, I want to use that to write songs and whatnot. The terrible triangles, and yeah, like I want to implement all these cool things. I want to use rare chords, electric chords, Neapolitan chords, things like that. Um, yeah, I would love to have these elements that show some sort of, I don't know, improvement, right? Because anyone can stay in key, but can you explore? My electronic music doesn't really change keys, and that's mostly out of fear. Like I don't want it to sound weird. I don't want there because there is always like when you change key. For most songs that do change key, I feel like there is that little like half second of awkwardness between the change and then of course adjusting to the new key. But I don't know, like some of the best songwriters out there really know how to make it seamless, and I would love to learn that skill. I'll never be one of the best songwriters, but I would love to learn how to do something like that. And yeah, I'd like to make classic guitar records. I would like to like get an actual classical guitar and start learning how to do that. I would love to become like I said, a really proficient technical guitar player. I don't have like 8 hours a day to dedicate to being a classical guitar player, but I can practice like 2 hours a day and get pretty okay at it. And I don't know, it's something I want to do the rest of my life. I want to play guitar for the rest of my life. I don't want to do it like professionally. I don't want to like really make any money off of it. I just want to I like being a guitar player. It's fun. I have a lot of respect for the guitar player. I want to be someone that plays instruments the rest of my life. I don't just want to be a guitar player. I want to play keys. I want to play, you know, bass guitar. I want to maybe upright bass. I don't know. I'd like to play cello shit like that, right? uh, yeah, and I would like to I'd like to get good at drums eventually, but I just haven't been putting the time into it that I need to, and that's on me. And yeah, I've kind of taken a defeatist attitude to percussion, but yeah. Still working on the book. I have very mixed feelings about it. I think the second half is really like not like thought provoking, but it's definitely more intended to get you to think about things, I guess. Maybe more so to like teach you things. Like I'm inputting a lot of like culture, real world stuff in this time instead of telling like stories or fables, right? I think the natural dichotomy between the first half and the second half. I don't know. I think it allots something like that, and I think that natural shift, I guess, that natural the natural difference between the two halves, um, will definitely like allow different people to come back for different reasons, right? And I don't know. I'm putting more me into the second half, which definitely probably creates some weirdness, and it's fun. um, but yeah, I've got this story called Grassroots. I don't know if I've talked about it on the channel already, but it's like it takes a lot of influence from when I was a kid, and I don't know. It's kind of like a moralistic story. Like it's kind of like not really a feel good story, but it's also not a feel good story, where it's like it talks about productivity and childhood and things like that. And there's not a lot of stuff that happens. It's a lot of just thinking, right? I like that, I guess, cerebral stuff, right? Not all the stories are going to be like that, but it requires the reader to be attentive. Like I think things like this, you're reading. If you read a story like Grassroots, you need to be interested in reading to read instead of like trying to like, okay, this is a story where this happened, and not every story is like that, because I feel like if you were to do that a lot, then you would definitely be considered a poor writer, because you do need to have stories where shit happens, like it's true, right? And I'm trying to find this balance, because when you're writing short stories, you have to really like sacrifice one or the other. Okay, do you want cerebral narration? Do you want to think about things? Yes, then you need to like then you need to sacrifice like shit happening, right? If you want it to be a real like short story, if you don't want it to be winded, and like I wrote a story for the first half called Digitalis, um, and that's like a perfect example where like I included some of the philosophical details about what like, so these people, they live on a ship where like humanity is simulated, and it's kind of like the Truman Show, where like people just are interested in these simulated lives. Like it's pretty much like The Sims, I guess, where like they have their lives generated and shit like that, and people just go through various lives, and everything is ran through a computer program. But one of the programs is somehow aware that they're part of a simulation, and then they have a natural reaction, I guess, right? Like he learns how he's gonna die, and it's all narrated through his lens. And I guess the purpose is I don't know. I think what I was thinking, because I don't know what I was thinking, but it's definitely like, if you had a fate and you knew your fate, how would you take it, right? And of course, the character in Digitalis is depressed. But I include philosophical details in Digitalis because there are two sides. I dub them the neo-stoicists, and I can't remember the other ones. But I use these loose philosophical terms just to have nomenclature. But the reason they exist is to get the reader hopefully to be like, I'm on the side of these people, right? Maybe, or I agree somewhat with these people, and then the other people I, you know, also kind of agree with. And yeah, I just I like including those details sometimes, even if it makes a story more convoluted, because I don't think my readers are stupid. You know, I don't think anybody that is reading something is inherently stupid, and like I think we underestimate just how much people can comprehend, and if people don't comprehend it and they want to, they will figure out a way, right? And people do this all the time, you know. And it's not high writing. Like, a lot of the shit that Tolkien writes is really or wrote was really neurotic. You know, Tolstoy really neurotic or really neurotic. Um, you know, a lot. I feel like a lot of like Russian literature has this high quality, like at least in the perception of the Western world, like, you know, Dostoevsky, Tolstoy, kind of Clarice Lispector, even though she's a like Portuguese language author. She lives in Brazil, but she has a lot of influence because she was from Ukraine, I think. And my literature professor last semester introduced me to Lispector, and she does use a lot of like Russian writing conventions, and her writing is really cerebral in a way that like does remind me of Dostoevsky. And like when I mention these names, I would like to preface that like I'm not a scholar of literature. I'm an English major, yes, but I care about grammar and shit like that. Like, I'm an English major in a very linguistic sense, and I'm not a livrophile by any means. I'm not a bibliophile. I have books. Like I have a lot of books, but I do have books, you know. But I have a lot of classics, and I have a lot of shit that I like to read, and I don't know. I've got a lot of I think the word might be compendiums. I've got a lot of compendiums. I've got an encyclopedia of German history, sculpture in America, history of the theater, things like this. But these are reference materials. A lot of the Fulbright books that I read, a lot of the books that like I sit down and read, they're language books, like, or they talk about language in a narrative sense, like The Story of the English Language by Mario Pei, or The Mother Tongue by I can't remember his name, but I actually haven't finished that one either. I think is it Bill Bryson? I want to say, but yeah, these language books are the ones that interest me. But I don't know. Yeah, but like there is that cerebral component that the West perceives, I would say, in Russian literature. And I think a lot of that is like Orientalism in a certain way, where like we have this mystique Asiatic thought about Russia generally as a place, or the Slavs in general, because they're European, but they're, you know, Orthodox Christianity is associated with the East, and like Eastern Europe, and they use different alphabet, a lot of them, you know, and except for like the Polish uses the Latin alphabet now. Serbian does sometimes. But yeah, so we have a lot of conceptions about, you know, cerebrality in literature and whatnot, and I really like writing the stuff that is like mostly focused on thinking, but in the same realm, I do like writing stories where shit happens, but I can't be thematically dense in those sorts of stories. And my biggest regret about the first half is the first half was loaded with these these stories where things happen. You know, guy turns into a dragon, guy, or you know, guy dies, and you know he hallucinates himself becoming a dragon, right? And then, yeah, like big saprophyte outbreak or like you know, big infectious mushroom, right? Uh, what else? What else? What else? I don't know. I'm having a hard time remembering what happens. Like the first story is thematically dense until like it gets to the point where shit starts happening, and then it's mostly like move, 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 right? But yeah, I mean, I want to get that done. That'll be done by the end of the summer. I'm doing online courses right now, so it's kind of on break, but yeah, that's fine. It'll be cool, man. And yeah, I feel like that's all that's going on right now. That's all I really have to talk about. And yeah, I've recorded long videos for a while, and a lot of them, you know, just discussion going on discussion. But I feel like what I want to do now is um, I want to have videos with ontological and teleological purposes, analyze them, assess them, and talk about them, and limit, I guess, the secondary discussion. You know, try to keep my videos under 30 minutes, especially the discussion ones. But yeah, so that's what's going on. After I finish the book, you know, I have to do some editing, and then I'll get it published. I'll self-publish, and then yeah, that's the big major writing project I want to do. And I don't know, I might take my time with it too. Like I've got 4 stories done right now, and like I'm not unhappy with them, but I do worry about their digestibility and like if people find them boring, which there's going to be stories in this that people are going to find boring, and that's okay. But I want to have moments of captivation even in the thought process, you know. But I feel like a lot of people don't want to read thought process. Like I feel like a lot of people like reading things like dialogue, because dialogue is really easy to digest, and I do have a story that has a lot of dialogue. um it's about a Vietnamese family, and yeah, it's got a lot of dialogue, and it was easy to write because it is easy to digest. But if I'm writing something that's like more conceptually dense than like a surface level, or I'm talking about like a dynamic between, I don't know, like childhood and growing up, then I don't want to use dialogue because it's a cop out tool. Like discussion is a tool. It's a vehicle for moving the plot or character development. It allows a character to invoke themselves. But yeah, so I like writing prose. I'm not a dialoguist. I like writing prose. And yeah. So there's that. Um yeah, and I've been including things like linguistic flair and whatnot, and I don't know, things you would consider hallmarks of my personality, you know. But yeah, that's all I've got for you. Thank you for listening. Sorry, I'm kind of like whipped. I'm extremely tired.